What's going on, my broskiis? My name is TheLordShiro, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and of course we are here with more Assault Rumble. Now that the day has gone over, we have some more stamina to go ahead and test out these teams. So the first team that you're going to be seeing here is going to be my first attempt at Assault Level Max against Akainu. Now this was the team, it isn't the exact team that I showed off in yesterday's video. I made some slight changes to put more Pirate Rumble Rare Recruits on the squad, and it doesn't really turn out as well as I would have hoped, so that it kind of ends up failing, all things considered. And look, you can definitely run a side team, it's gonna do decent, but we end up pivoting and doing something a little bit different in the secondary clip. So even though this one doesn't work out too well, we do have a little bit of a comeback story, so definitely stay tuned. But the way that this team is going to work is we have obviously Wano Law, because if you're running a side team, you probably should be putting him in some capacity on your squad. He helps out immensely. And then as for the other characters, it's kind of up to your discretion. There's a lot of good side characters you can use on your team. You could obviously pivot and run, you know, the Luffy, Zoro, Sanji squad if you have the 3-sword style Nami. That's a really good core of characters to work with. So that is definitely a valid option, especially because, you know, the Nami and the Luffy, Zoro, Sanji are both side and slashers, so they do an extra like 30% damage against the opponent. So that honestly is a pretty good way to go about it. So we go a little bit of a different route here with Memories of Straw Hat Sanji. We have Yamato, which worked really well last season. And then we've also got Galaxy Impact Garp. However, we don't really construct the team very well. This is kind of like thrown together. It's a little clunky, all things considered. So you guys will see the rest of this clip play out. It doesn't work out as intended, but in the secondary clip here, we're going to build a different team to tackle the Akainu fight, and it works out so much better. Okay, so we're on the revenge story now. So our secondary team against Akainu that we're going to test out is going to be just Mono Slasher. If you have a look at the actual event, Akainu takes more damage from side characters, but he also takes more damage from slasher characters. So this time around, we're going to make it a full slasher-focused squad, and we are going to be using Zoro Sanji, of course, because we can get a lot of buffs from them, and the hasting is really good. I feel like haste in normal Rumble is kind of like fine, but in Assault Rumble, I feel like haste is just so much more valuable because the enemies are attacking so often. If you can haste characters to the top of the order, it's way, way better compared to normal Rumble. So the fact that Zoro Sanji do that is really big. Of course, if you do have Zoro and Sanji on your squad, you want to make sure you have a Straw Hat in some capacity on your squad, which is why Rumble Brook is really, really good. Of course, no real explanation for S-Hawk. He's just amazing. So of course we're going to use him. Now, Roger Rayleigh Gaban, we're using that character specifically because the original Roger is a little underpowered in Rumble, and then you can't really use, well, I guess you could use Roger and Whitebeard, but to be honest, Roger Rayleigh Gaban just works so much better because health cuts, they don't really work in Assault Rumble. So characters that do health cuts are just nowhere near as valuable in Assault Rumble. So instead of using Roger Whitebeard, we pivot to Roger Rayleigh Gaban, especially if you can get their Super Rumble special to launch. They just do massive damage against the opponents. If you have more investments into Roger Rayleigh Gaban, you're going to have a way better time in this content. And of course, if you're running a slasher team, you're probably going to be using Strength Odin in some capacity. And this character is really good, additional special CT. They do decent damage with their special, so that's awesome. And then we also have Kinemon Denjiro, Ashura Doji, Dogstorm. Character's also pretty decent. They've received a bunch of buffs in Rumble over time. They do defense down, they do decent damage. They've got a pretty good Rumble ability overall, so that's the reason why we chose them. Normally, I'd put like 10th anniversary Shanks on the team, and honestly, that is a decent strategy, but I felt like I needed more damage against this opponent because there's 4 enemies we have to deal with. So having K-Dad on the team, I felt like was a little better than testing out the 10th anniversary Shanks, and I was pretty happy with how this team actually worked out. Now on the bench we do have Pell. I think Pell's a great option here. If you have characters like Fujitora and Green Bull, they're a really good option as well. You could use something like Kawamatsu potentially. There's a couple of options you could use. You do see that we do use the Cat Viper on the bench. Probably would replace him because he is a shooter character. The enemies do more damage in debuffed shooter characters, so would probably change that one. And I would leave Brook for sure. And I really like Pell because if you can get the chance for Pell to launch his special, he just does so much damage against the opponents because he hits so many times. So he's a really, really great asset to the squad. And then, yeah, as I said, Cat Viper would be the character that I would replace. Really happy with how this team turned out, and we'll see if this team is able to go even further over the next couple of days in Assault Rumble. Moving on to our Whitebeard fight. This is pretty much the exact same team that we showed off in the initial video for Assault Rumble. I kind of just slapped this team together during the video, like during the break between trying to figure out a different team against Whitebeard. I was kind of shocked at how this team was actually able to deal with the Whitebeard fight. The Saint J. Garcia Satin is just a massive character to use in this fight in particular. The fact that he can special bind is really, really good. And because of that, you could opt to use the Smoker character. So you see that Smoker's on the bench on this squad. I am actually contemplating putting him on the front line because the special bind mechanic that he can do is actually pretty insane. Of course, the enemies cannot be inflicted with force out, damage over time, or health cuts, but also action bind. So you gotta try and figure out different ways to debuff these opponents. And I feel like, you know, Confusion is going to be very good. Special Bind, I think, is going to be kind of underrated. A lot of characters do have, like, random effects to Special Bind, so keep that in mind. I do think that that's going to be a really good way forward. So I think if I was going to rerun this team again, I probably would put Smoker on the front line just to reduce the amount of specials that the opponents are going to be using on us. Even though, like, our team tanks these enemies really, really well. So I guess the damage isn't necessarily the problem, but, you know, it's just something to take note of. But, you know, obviously reducing the amount of damage that you take is kind of big because it means that you will have a higher score. Remember with how Assault Rumble works, during Assault Level Max, the enemies will continuously hit you even though they're at 0 HP. It just means that when they're at 0 HP, you do more damage to them. So if you can reduce the amount of damage that you take, it's going to overall get you more points to rank you up higher in the Assault Rumble mode. One thing I will say though is I am a massive fan of this Memories of Straw Hat Nami. She's a phenomenal character, being able to target your striker characters and essentially make their specials max so that you can get really interesting situations with like Luffy and Yamato. If you're able to get their special to launch and then you get Nami to launch to make them max straight away, like that is like the god combo, and I feel like if we're able to get that a couple of times in this event, then this team will be able to secure some pretty decent points. But we'll see how things go. We'll see what other people in the community are going to be cooking up for their teams. But overall, pretty happy with the fact that this striker team was actually able to work. I'm not 100% sure on Guild Tesoro, but the fact that he gives that permanent special CT increase is kind of why I would opt to use him in this event. And then looking at the final clip of the video, we're going to go up against the Luffy fight. Now, the Luffy fight, I think a lot of people were kind of struggling with because, okay, so the characters you want to use against him, you got Int and Cerebral characters. Those are the ones that you predominantly want to build around, as those will do the additional damage against the opponent. Now, one character that I realized was absolutely insane in this fight is going to be Robin and Koala. This dual unit has always been a character that a lot of people have kept in their back pocket against opposing free spirit squads, mainly due to the fact that they just tear through them. They've just got so many cool abilities that do so much damage against free spirit characters. So if we have a look at exactly what they do, their passive ability gives a permanent level 5 defense down against free spirit enemies. So in this instance, all of the enemies are free spirit. And then their special ability targets 2 enemies for 3 times damage, 3 times. And it also will do some paralysis against the opponent. The paralysis is redundant, but This character does so much damage because of the permanent defense down against the opponent. We also have Nami and Karina on the squad, which can also further reduce the defense of the opponents. So if you can get the really cool combo of Nami, Karina launching and then getting the Robin and Koala to launch, that's going to enable this character to do so much damage. So what I would suggest is, if you have Robin, Koala, is to try and build a team around them, because their permanent defense down is going to enable them to do so much damage. So I've also got 10th anniversary Shanks on the squad. Really like that character, providing decent one-hit target damage, as well as providing some defense capabilities for the squad. And as for the other units, it's really hard to build around this one, because like Cerebral, they've got some decent characters, but you do still want at least one other character that can do some decent damage. So like obviously Robin and Koala, they're going to be fine. I opted to put Atlas on the team. I felt like Atlas was a pretty good choice. They do decent damage, but it's only really one hit of Atlas's damage that actually does decent. The rest of the damage is pretty redundant. And then as for the Rumble Rare Recruits, Inazuma is fantastic, a great Cerebral character, does a ton of damage. I also have S-Hawk just because I felt like he was a decent option, because if he can come in and launch, then that would be awesome. It's just a massive damage bump. And then I also have the Ivankov, the Rumble Legend Ivankov. Opted to put that on the team just to test it out. It was fine. I wouldn't say it was the best unit ever, but at the same time, like, Cerebral don't really have crazy Rumble Rare Recruits either. They got some very obscure ones. But as you can see, Luffy right at the end there just does so much damage. But overall, we were able to beat it. We got a decent score out of it. So we'll see what happens over the next couple days in Assault Rumble. Hopefully you enjoyed this video though. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I'm that, guys. I'll see you guys within the next video.
TheLordShiro